What's up guys, Vortex here, and as I promised in my last video, here is my in-depth total overview of the T800 Terminator. Since it is much more important to the plot, the T800 requires a lot more depth than the other Terminators. So, just as a statement before we begin, I'm only going to talk about the T800 on a technical level, so his abilities, his equipment, yeah, stuff that the T800 in overall is capable of. So yeah, please enjoy the video. Okay, so let's start with the T800's CPU. The T800 contains a neural net processor, or learning computer, contained within the endoskeleton's skull and protected by inertial shock dampeners, meaning that it can withstand a lot of physical trauma. The CPU was developed by Cyberdyne Systems and is one of the most powerful microprocessors ever built. As part of its vast internal databases, the T800 contains detailed files on human anatomy and physiology, so it makes it more an efficient killer. The CPU could also be updated with multiple database files related to advanced infiltration techniques, basic training for soldiers, emergency medical training, sniper training, and an extensive tactical database, and even detailed files from other Terminators, making each unit a combat veteran. That means that this bad motherfucker contained almost every combat related information ever. Now moving on to the actual endoskeleton. The metal endoskeleton of the T800 is a microprocessor-controlled, fully armored hyper-alloy combat chassis and is constructed with frictionless bearings in its joints, and a servo-automated control system as well. Its limbs are controlled by axial drive motors and clavicular trailing links, allowing the T800s to maneuver faster than the T600 Terminators, as bursts of speed up to 22 miles per hour no longer threaten the joint assemblies. The T800 was also 20% lighter and 40% stronger than the T600. The armored frame is capable of withstanding most small arms fire and is able to survive being set on fire and being covered in molten steel, with only minimal damage and no degradation of capabilities. There are some weak spots though. Kyle Reese was able to blow the first Terminator in half with a pipe bomb by jamming it in between its joints. However, the upper half torso was still functional, although with a severed arm. Sharp-edged objects, such as metal pipes or shrapnel, could penetrate the endoskeleton armor plate if propelled with sufficient force. Energy weapons, like those mounted on the TX, could easily penetrate the armor and momentarily disable the T800. Enough force could permanently dislocate limbs and disrupt the internal frame. Additionally, if any part suffers from damage during battles, after operational for long periods of time, the endoskeleton would begin to break down, with its joints locking when exposed to stress or repetitive movement. The endoskeleton can be affected by age. After being online in the past from 1973 to 2017, the T800, known as Pops, from Terminator Genesis, had trouble with his servo motors degrading, causing lockups on his knee and in his hand. He stated specifically that it was due to age. Given the fact that the T800s have power cells that can sustain them for hundreds of years, this may have to do with a lack of proper maintenance over that period of time. And now for the T800's ultimate weapon, its ultimate key for being the perfect infiltrator machine, its living tissue sheath. This is referred to as the mold around the endoskeleton. Living tissue, grown specifically for the T800s, consists of flesh, skin, hair and blood. The synthetic flesh takes approximately 40 days to adequately be attached to the endoskeleton and is capable of limited regeneration over time. As this tissue is living, it is warm, and to the touch and hence of the T800s will not show up on thermal scanners as being any different from a real human. The biological components are only grafted onto the T800s, which are to be used to infiltrate resistance bases. T800s, which are deployed straight into the battlefield, usually do not possess biological components. As part of our scientific progression, mankind has unraveled the human genome, and we were able to identify the genes which control cell lifespan and degradation. Using this information stored within its vast databases, Skynet has been able to eliminate these unwanted genes from cells prior to industrially growing biological components for the T800s. This means that the skin and muscles of the T800s, unlike the human equivalents, do not wear down, degrade or necrotize over relatively short periods of time. It also means that the T800's biological components will not rot over long periods of time and do not require a flow of nutrients or antibodies. However, if a T800 is left on the battlefield for too great of a time period, its biological components will begin to rot and its cover will be blown. Though it does not need nutrient or blood flow, the T800 has a circulatory system which is controlled by a tiny little pump which maintains a constant pressure. This means that the T800 is able to convincingly bleed when wounded. However, the living tissue of the T800s is still prone to necrotization after a period. Therefore, when in not active service, flesh-covered T800s are stored in special racks in a cryogenic vault to preserve the flesh from deteriorating. And the tissue sheath will age with the Terminator like it would on a normal human being. Pops from Terminator Genesis was active from 1973 to 2017. And over that time, his tissue sheath was clearly shown to age. He had wrinkles and grey hair in 1984, compared to the T800 sent back to that time who had smoother features. He had even more wrinkles and white hair in 2017. And Sarah Connor stated that the tissue sheath is like normal human skin and will age. It has also been shown that given enough time, a T800 can regrow its tissue sheath, at least if it's not completely destroyed. After the sheath on his face was slightly damaged and was destroyed completely on his right arm, Pops said it would take years to regrow. It's unknown how long exactly it took, but by 2017 the sheath was completely regrown with no sign of damage. And now moving on to the actual abilities of the T800. The T800 is capable of running internal system checks, calculating the distance of objects relative to itself, targeting with a precision head-up display, making detailed kinetic studies of trajectories, sampling and analyzing the atmosphere, weather patterns and wind velocity, analyzing the human emotional states in order to access possible hostility, analyzing body language and direction of muscle contraction, calculating the force of gravity, analyzing texture and temperature of materials, and sensing radar scans. The 800 series is also equipped with vocals, which enable it to replicate any human speech pattern of which it has heard an adequate specimen. It does this by recording and storing syllables of the subject's voices, which it then replays and uses to digitally synthesize their speech patterns. The T800's auditory sensors are located upon either side of the head, where human ears would be. One ear records the full unequalized range of external sounds, while the other can automatically filter signals within a narrow range for a specific auditory signal. And with that huge auditory capability, the T800 is also equipped with visual capabilities to match, making it a much more efficient killer. The T800's optical sensors can sample an extended range of visible frequencies, for example infrared, which can allow it to see heated bodies in total darkness. This information is then displayed on a 40,000-bit digitalized display. Concussion-proof lenses protect the T800's eyes, which are capable of moving independently. When using both eyes to track two different targets moving in different directions, depth perception is created artificially by creating a computer-generated off-angle ghost image. The T800 is capable of motion tracking, search modes, facial identification and recognition, and has extensive vision enhancement capabilities, including long-range zoom. The T800s can snap magnify an image by around 15 times enhancement, motion analysis and night vision. The T800s do not feel pain and they do not have nerve endings, but they can sense injuries. I believe that the T800s can do this through the use of impact sensors, or as a part of the overall sensor sphere that the unit generates. Approximately some sort of radar sense. There may be various impact sensors that record localized vibrations in the armor shell, and by extrapolation sense where the damage in the T800's living tissue is. The T800s may also use these sensors to locate threats that are either hidden or out of visual range. This data then allows the T800s to conduct low complexity self-repairs. If disabled, however, the T800 is capable to reroute its systems to a secondary alternative power source, thus bypassing any severed connections, damaged circuits or internal impairments such as things as that. The 800 series also has redundant backup hydraulic systems. Therefore, it's imperative that resistance members determine that any T800s are totally incapacitated in combat. Otherwise, the units are able to revive themselves and continue battle or pursuit of targets. And they say, last finishing touch to the video, I would like to add something about T800's durability and more of some of its weaknesses. Unlike their T600 cousins, who could be easily dispatched by a well-placed gunshot to the cranium, the T800 is far more durable to all forms of attack. The exact extent of what they can endure is subject to their circumstance, though most have displayed remarkable resilience to encounters that would leave its predecessors as a pile of scrap metal. It is also stated that a T800 can be put down if it is hit in a critical spot with a 50 caliber round. Now, again, it has to be a very critical spot in order to damage critical systems. Also, as the war raged on, Skynet learned that the T800 was very vulnerable to heat and could be melted down. So, it decided to switch out the titanium core of the endoskeleton to coltan instead, because coltan has a much higher melting point than titanium. So, in the end, Skynet created the new and upgraded endoskeleton with a titanium coltan combination. Now, I'm not a fucking chemistry expert, so I wouldn't know for sure, but this is what I know, okay? This is from my own experience of watching this shit, so don't take my word for it, okay? Now, with this upgrade, it made the Terminator almost impossible to melt down unless it faced super extreme heat. Now, this has been my complete coverage of the T800's capabilities and its powers and equipment. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope for sure that this bad boy doesn't come after you, because then you are seriously fucked. Thank you all so much for watching, guys. This has been a huge pleasure making this video. It took a long while to gather information, so please be sure to mash that fucking like button and rate that subscribe button as well. I'll be back.